Um, I have this saying, life is half random. And this is the random side where, it takes twists and turns. And this is something out of a movie. This is certainly a black swan event in my experiences. And nobody at the Dallas Mavericks is an expert on infectious diseases or their spread. And so this is not a situation where you fake it till you make it or try to sound or act important.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I hope you're doing well, or at least hanging in there. There's a lot to talk about from the last few days, so I'm just going to kind of blank screen this video. It'll be a little bit different because I have so many things I want to talk about. First, just to start, so one thing to keep in mind is that stocks don't remember what price you bought them, and they don't remember what price you sold them at. So I know a lot of people that watch this channel are interested in Tesla. And just keep in mind that, when the stock was at 179 and then it went to 300 and then 500, 600 and 900, there were people all along that timeline that were looking at the stock when it was at 300 saying, I should have bought it at 179. If I had only bought it there, then I would have made all this money and things would be great. But they missed the opportunity from 300 all the way up to 900. The same thing works on the way down. So don't forget that if you're looking at things from the perspective of, I should have sold something at 900 and now that it's at 600 or 500, I'm not even talking about Tesla stock, even talking about the market. Something was at 1,000 and now it's at 800. I should have sold it at 1,000, but now it's at 800. I want to wait until I can get back to even, or I want to wait until I can get my money back. In my opinion, that's the wrong way to think. You always have to make the right decision given the facts you have at the time that you're acting, and facts change. And so a lot, in my opinion, has changed in the last couple of days, and I want to talk about it. So a little bit of wisdom from Stan Druckenmiller. And first, I posted the 3 phases of a bear market to my Twitter account, and I'll leave the link to the description below. It's on Twitter. But just a couple things, basically, I think we're in the panic phase right now. That doesn't mean that stocks have bottomed, but clearly there's a lot of confusion in the market. There's a lot of volatility. The markets don't usually bottom in a panic, but I believe we are in the panic phase of the market right now. I had said on Friday last week and then again on Sunday night that the market has gotten so volatile that it's too close, too difficult to call the daily gyrations. And so I think the best response, at least personally for me, the best response is just to scale everything down, which means if you own a lot of stocks or if you own a lot of one stock, to sell as much as you reasonably can. Not because you think that the market is going up or down or whatever is going to happen on one particular day, but it gives you much more clarity of thought, because when your P&L isn't swinging around wildly in dollar terms, it just makes things a lot easier. It makes it a lot easier to act. So I had told you that on Friday, I don't really talk a lot about trading, but I had told you that on Friday and on Sunday night that I had scaled way down and have done a couple of small things, but nothing really notable, because again, I think the short-term volatility is telling you that things are too close to call. And as Stan Druckenmiller says, when it comes to golf, if there's waves on the bay, the pros don't play, meaning when it's really, really windy and you just can't tell what's going to happen, sometimes it's best just to not play or to stay at home. This isn't a direct quote, but Druckenmiller has also talked about how difficult it is to short things in a bear market and that he prefers to buy bonds. I've talked a lot about that, but one of the primary reasons is because during a bear market, stocks often exhibit violent swings, both positive and negative. So you might get faked out by a big positive swing on one particular day and think that the worst is over. And, it's sort of a bear trap, and then things keep going down. So I could spend a couple hours probably talking about everything that's gone on in the market. And, even in the last few days, and the policy responses and the news flow and so many other crazy things. But let me just tell you a little bit about why my thinking has changed. And again, not from a trading perspective, but just from a where could the market go, where are stocks going, what's happening right now. I think the animal spirits that were in the market previously have been deactivated a little bit. Harvard came out and they said, we're going to suspend classes. And you saw the NBA did the same thing. So my thinking is what business, and Google has done the same thing, work from home. What company at this point is going to step out on the ledge and say, hey, everybody, it's okay, come back to work. Who wants to be that school? Who wants to be that event? Who wants to be that company that is responsible for getting a lot of people sick after they buck the trend that is going on right now? And the trend is to close things down, to keep people in their homes, and basically to halt activity. Once that wheel stops spinning, I think it's difficult to get it started again because, for the animal spirits to get activated again, it means that people need to be confident about the future, which means they borrow money and they make investments to produce products or produce anything that they think people will buy or consume in the future. And if those expectations go down, it means borrowing goes down, which means investing goes down, and, activity just collapses a little bit. So aside from all the panic and chaos that's been created by this whole mess, which is terrible, the good thing is that if you're listening right now, there are going to be some massive opportunities to do some huge things in the markets coming up. And, that's just inevitable. Whenever we get a washout like this, it creates massive opportunities for the people that are able to hang around. So what does that mean? It means staying healthy, focusing on your family, protecting yourself, protecting your money, your account, and all those things. And it's not the time to worry about making money. And it's not the time to get discouraged about, I should have sold this on this day, or I should have bought this on that day, or anything like that. It's really a time to hunker down, to survive, to put yourself in a position to be able to capitalize in the future on the huge number of opportunities that are going to come as a result of this. A couple of interesting tweets. Cathie Wood sent this out yesterday. She said, interesting, while the equity markets are selling off in response to the panic about coronavirus, Treasury bonds have stopped rallying, which could mean that investors are getting ready for a long overdue asset allocation shift from bonds to equities. And previously when people bought bonds heading into a recession, the yields were a lot higher. Now yields are, between negative and like 1% pretty much all around the world. So the upside is greatly diminished. And ultimately, that will force people into buying companies, into buying stocks, because the returns are so much better. But it doesn't mean that the numbers for those stocks, the earnings estimates, can't come down in the near term because of this essentially halt to activity. And the halt has really happened over the last few days. So I think it's really important to stay open-minded and flexible in these markets. And, I don't think anybody really knows what's happening. A few weeks ago or last week, Elon said the coronavirus is dumb or the panic is dumb. I think Marquez Brownlee and Mark Cuban that you saw earlier probably have it called the closest. So Marquez said yesterday, sheesh, all I know is that we're never going to forget 2020. And that's true. I guess all we've had so far is the second largest single day decline in oil, almost World War III, and all these other things, a pandemic. So if you're staying calm and you haven't lost your mind, congratulations. Another important thing to mention, Stan Druckenmiller talks about how he looks inside the stock market to give him a gauge as to what's happening in the economy. And I'll explain what that means. Basically, what he's saying is if you look inside the stock market, meaning you look at the various sectors and the various companies within the market, it will give you an idea as to what people are expecting to happen in the future with respect to the economy. So pay attention to the sectors. It's an obvious observation that airlines and cruise lines are down because travel will be curtailed. And, to the people that are thinking, well, I want to step in and buy, I'm just not sure that for me personally, that makes sense, because I don't buy things just because they went down. And I also don't sell things just because they went up. You want to look at long-term value to try to establish what the potential outcomes could be. But I will say that value has been totally suspended for the time being. You've got to think about psychology and emotions and the impact, once again, the impact on the animal spirits and the general wheel of the economy. and how likely those things are to be reactivated if we have this we're having a severe stoppage right now. So how long is it going to take to get those things reactivated? It could be a while. And so again, the market could trade anywhere. It could trade up a lot tomorrow. I just don't know. I actually expected that the market would be up on the stimulus announcement from the administration. That was obviously a huge disappointment to the market. So you just don't know. A few other interesting things. So, and I heard this from somebody that I trust a lot who has a ton of experience in the medical field and had been saying this for quite some time. And I've just sort of now begun to understand the implications of it. But basically the point is that everybody, virtually everybody, will be exposed to this virus because of how these things work. And I'm not saying that to panic people whatsoever. I'm saying it because I think there's a potential that it's true. I'm not a health expert, but hear me out on this. In New York, there was somebody who got sick and was in Grand Central Station, was working in Midtown Manhattan, likely exposed, in air quotes, a lot of people to the virus. However, only a small subset of those people actually got sick. So I think the silver lining to the question of, what's going to happen when everybody gets exposed is that, yes, lots of people will get exposed, but it doesn't mean that everybody will contract the virus or even get sick. Clearly, there are a lot of things that could have been done better. I think there's also just, though, an unpredictability to this whole thing, and it is a force majeure. It's nobody's fault. What's going on. It's just most important to think rationally and act with a clear head, protect yourself and stay safe. I think it's also worth it to think about what companies could be strengthened by this whole episode. And I don't mean in the short term. I don't mean like what companies are going to sell surgical masks. I just mean what companies could potentially be strengthened by this long term. And, there are some that come to mind. And again, just to go back to Tesla, I will say, I've seen people making predictions and projections about what the delivery numbers are going to be for this quarter and things like that. And I've thought about discussing those things, and there's certainly been a lot of interesting news on Tesla. But again, I think right now you just have to understand that the market is in most likely a phase of panic, and people don't ascribe multiples to earnings, and they don't view news normally in environments like this. And so I would just caution against getting too excited or even too pessimistic about any news that comes out about companies like Tesla. Even if they suspended production in Shanghai, which, I'm not expecting they would. I don't know why they would do that. But even if they do, why would that cause you to panic? That suspension is likely to be temporary. And Tesla is not the only auto company obviously being affected by this. And so think about, potentially how Tesla's position might be strengthened as a result of the liquidity and capital of other competitors drying up a little bit. Also maybe people don't want to go into a car dealership to purchase vehicles anymore. They'd rather click on a website from their own house and have the thing delivered to their front door. So there are lots of puts and takes. And once again, I just think it's important not to this is an emotional time, but not to let emotions take hold, and to remember that if you're still playing the game, it's never too late to make any move. I personally think the market could contract a lot from here, could go down a lot from here, but it's not fundamentally based. It's based on human emotions and the phases of the market, the phases that the market goes through in bear sell-offs. There will be a time to buy back in heavily. And honestly, I may miss it. I'm not going to claim that I'll get it right. I just think, again, for me right now, things are too hectic, and I see confidence evaporating, rapidly. And quite frankly, now that the market's down, I see a lot more people asking me, hey, should I sell stocks now? Should I get rid of everything? And not everybody has done that yet. So we could still see more waves of selling as people finally realize, hey, my stock isn't going to recover tomorrow. It's not going to recover next week. It's going to take a while to get through this. That could create additional selling. So who knows? But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. I appreciate you watching as always, especially if you've made it to the end. Please subscribe, because I'm going to be talking about this and a lot of other things. I always mention this. It's not a Tesla channel. It's not a stock trading channel, but we got to talk about the things that are going on in the world. And those are two notable things that are occurring right now. So anyway, thanks again, and talk to you soon.